Hey everyone! The guys at Slimbook were nice enough to shower me with laptops to review, and one of the ones they sent really caught my eye. It's a fancy ultrabook, but not that expensive. It's AMD based, it's got a metal chassis, and basically it's one of the best laptops I used even outside of the Linux laptop world. It's the KDE Slimbook. So let's take a look right after this. No, I'm kidding, there is no sponsor. Let's get right into it. So the laptop itself is running on an AMD Ryzen base. It comes in a 14-inch and a 15-inch version. I got the 15-inch one. Both devices come with a Ryzen 7 4800H, which is a pretty powerful CPU, and they're configurable with up to 64GB of RAM and 2TB of SSD, with a large choice of keyboard layouts as usual with Slimbook. So the laptop itself, the 15-inch version, starts at €929 with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of SSD. Now that's not cheap by any means, but we're in premium laptop territory here, so it's really not that expensive if you think about it. My review unit came with 16GB of RAM and 250GB of SSD, so it's pretty much your standard configuration. The 15-inch version only weighs 1.5 kilograms, which really feels super light when you're carrying that thing around. Now what's striking with this device is the build quality. The whole chassis is made out of magnesium and it feels really sturdy. There is no screen wobble when typing, almost no give at all on the keyboard, and that thing doesn't creak or bend. Now it's one of the best chassis I've seen from any Linux device manufacturers, and probably one of the best chassis I've seen from any laptop period, maybe barring MacBooks. And this begs the question of why, oh why would you add stickers to this really great looking design? We're in 2021, stickers have to go! No less than 4 were added to my review unit. One to tell you it's made out of magnesium, one to tell you it's running GNU/Linux, and 2 separate stickers for AMD graphics and Ryzen 7. Now these stickers have to go. They leave a mark when you try to remove them, they really mar the design. And here the branding is pretty tasteful. You've got a KDE logo laser etched on the back with the Slimbook logo as well, and just a Slimbook logo on the underneath the screen, on the lid. It's pretty tasteful. And you also get that wonderful little plasma logo key for the super key, which looks really nice. Now talking about the keys, it's one of the best keyboards I've used in a long time. It doesn't use the usual chiclet style, but goes for kind of floating keys. Key travel is just sufficient with a nice bounce back on the keys and a soft feeling when typing. And the sound is also really pleasing to me for some reason. It's some kind of deep bump that kind of rumbles when you type. It's super nice and it's really far from the clacky sound that you get from like Mac Magic keyboards or the Bluetooth keyboard I use. It's really nice to hear. I love that sound. Now the only issue I have with that keyboard is that the keys aren't the most legible. It looks like the letters and symbols are etched away from the key, which works well in direct sunlight, but makes them pretty hard to read from a distance or an angle. And the backlight has the same issue, being really legible when you're directly above the keyboard. Anything at an angle and the light just doesn't diffuse enough so you can look at what is written on the key. Now the trackpad itself is also really good, fully made out of glass. It's still a hinged design, meaning that the physical click is really only doable up until half of the trackpad, but it reminds me a lot of the previous generation of MacBook trackpads. It's super smooth, really precise, and really nice to use for day-to-day operations. Now, it's a shame that KDE doesn't ship with trackpad gestures by default out of the box, because this thing ships with KDE Neon, and honestly, this trackpad seems like a dream come true for trackpad gestures, so maybe KDE, something to think about in the future. Now the screen itself is a pretty good matte IPS panel. It's 1080p at 60Hz, which is enough for a 15-inch, and it has good color accuracy, seriously good viewing angles with no color shift, and it's bright enough. The bezels on that screen are minimal, at least on the top and on the sides, but the bottom one is a bit bigger. The webcam that lives in the top bezel is serviceable, going up to 720p at 30 fps. You won't look like a complete potato, but it's really not something you'd want to use to record a video. Now in terms of I/O, you get a pop-up Ethernet jack, one USB 2 and one USB 3 port, a headphone jack, and a micro SD card slot on the left side. And on the right side, you've got a barrel charger, an HDMI port, a USB 3 port, and a USB-C port. The back is just used to expel hot air and cool the laptop. Now this laptop specifically is pre-installed with KDE Neon, which is based on the latest Ubuntu LTS for a stable base with a rolling version of KDE Plasma on top of it. It's a great distro and it really shines on that laptop with the big bright screen and the vivid colors. It's also super speedy. Now I've switched to KDE a few months ago and it's a desktop I've really learned to love. Even with the out-of-the-box experience, I think it's a pretty great desktop to use. Now, if you like the laptop design but you don't really care about KDE, you can buy the same laptop in the form of the Slimbook Pro X. It's basically the exact same design, but you don't get the KDE branding and the Plasma Super Key, and you don't get KDE Neon installed, you get a selection of other distributions that you can get on top of it. Apart from that, the hardware is identical, and the only difference is mainly that when buying the KDE Slimbook, you also contribute a part of the profits that Slimbook makes to the KDE project. Now the other difference is that the KDE Slimbook isn't pre-installed with any of the Slimbook apps, and some of you might prefer that, but that also prevents you from using Slimbook Battery and Slimbook Face, which are pretty useful apps. The first one allows you to create power profiles, and the second one, Slimbook Face, allows you to use the infrared camera that is in the hardware to log in using your face. So it's basically like Windows Hello, but for Linux. And not having that pre-installed kinda defeats the purpose of having that IR camera in the KDE Neon Slimbook. But you can still add the Slimbook PPA to the KDE Neon Slimbook and install those applications, so it's not such a big deal. Okay, so now let's see how the thing performs. The CPU is a Ryzen 7 4800H with 8 physical cores and 16 threads. And as expected, it is extremely fast and powerful. Running Geekbench 5, it got a single core score of 1259 and a multi-core score of 7307. These scores are pretty good, handily beating the 10th gen Core i7 I reviewed in the Juno Computers Neptune 15. Now it's not even that far from my Ryzen 7 5800X that I have on my desktop back there. Now the graphics part of that laptop is based on Vega 7 architecture and it's really good for most day-to-day tasks and even some light and some AAA gaming at lower settings. I tried the usual benchmarks and ran Shadow of the Tomb Raider at the lowest settings, and it got 32 FPS on average. It's definitely playable, even though the quality isn't wonderful to look at, but at the native resolution, the 1080p resolution for that screen though, it's highly playable and it doesn't look horrible either. Now the Dawn of War 3 benchmark ran at 37 FPS on the lowest settings as well, which makes it pretty playable. Now in terms of battery life, the laptop doesn't disappoint either. It's got a 92 watt-hour battery, which is more than enough for a day's work. Now, in my experience using this laptop for my day job, I got 2 browsers open at the same time, Firefox and Chromium. I did a little bit of video conferencing using the webcam and using Discord, having Discord running in the background, using the laptop with Wi-Fi and a Bluetooth mouse, and it lasted me around 6 to 7 hours most days. If I tried to game a little bit on my lunch break, it obviously knackered the battery quite a lot, but for day-to-day tasks, you're gonna have a whole day battery life, generally. Now you won't want to go over on the weekend carrying that laptop without its hefty power brick, which kinda defeats the purpose of having such a light notebook. But yeah, basically for day-to-day tasks, you're gonna get whole day battery life unless you go crazy. Now in general, the performance is really amazing. Like you're gonna be able to do 3D modeling, video editing, video rendering, and even some light gaming or AAA gaming, day-to-day tasks, playing videos, whatever you throw at this thing, it should be able to manage that quite handily. It's pretty powerful. So it might sound like I'm a bit over-enthusiastic over this device, because I can't really find anything bad to say about it. But I'm not sponsored by Slimbook, I'm not getting any money for this, and I don't get to keep the laptop afterwards. I just think it's one of the best laptops that I've ever used, period. And I've used MacBook Pros, I've used a Huawei MateBook 13, I've used a lot of other laptops from other manufacturers, and basically this is one that I really fell in love with. The design is really great, the chassis is super sturdy, the keyboard, the trackpad are amazing, the screen is really good, and the performance is incredible. So yeah, it's a no-brainer if you're in the market for a laptop at around €1,000 and you want something pre-installed with Linux. You either get the KDE Slimbook if you want to support the KDE project, or you get the Slimbook Pro X if you don't care about KDE. It's really an amazing choice. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't hesitate to like or dislike if you didn't. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications to get more videos like this one. And if you want to watch somewhere else than on YouTube, you can also watch the video on Odyssey. I'm there. the link is in the description. If you really want to help support the channel as well, you can join my Patreon subscribers and YouTube members, and you'll get access to a weekly patroncast, whatever your level of contribution, and also the right to vote on the next topics that I'll cover. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!